Coming at you live and direct from Los Angeles, California, going coast to coast, back here on the West. For those of you that use your voice, you will be happy to know we are on the phone with designated Linklater voice teacher at the Stella Adler Academy of Acting in Hollywood, California, Heidi Jo Yudis. Hi, Heidi.
Hey there, how are you?
I'm good.
Great.
Heidi, what is the first thing that people don't know about their voice that they should know? Or I guess one important thing that people should probably know about their voices, but you find that they don't?
Well, probably the biggest thing, it's one of the simplest things, but one of the things that people don't really recognize is that your breath is the blueprint for your sound, for your voice. So your breath is the thing that supports your voice. So if you're not really breathing or fully free in your breath or really connected to your breath in a way that's free, that's not, related to tension, then your voice is actually going to have strain or tension in it, or you'll lose it faster if you're not really breathing. Because most people, by the time they reach adulthood, have some bad habits when it comes to breathing, just from living life. We get conditioned into holding our breath throughout the day, holding our breath, controlling our breath, pushing the breath sometimes. So most people do this throughout their waking hours, and they don't even know they're doing it because they've been so conditioned into it that they don't recognize they're doing it. So that affects your voice.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Could you describe a little bit what you do? Most people, I think, when they think voice teacher, they're thinking someone who is just working with singers, but that's
right,
not true, is it?
Teacher. No, yeah, I'm actually not a singing teacher. I do sing, but I don't. What I do has nothing to do with teaching singers or singing. I primarily work with actors and performers, although I do work with people who are non-performing and non-acting as well. I work at an acting school, so I'm working with that kind of area a lot of the time. But basically, what I'm doing is helping people with their speaking voices, which is something that a lot of us don't really think about. That's a lot of the time. I just end up working with actors because that is something that actors think about. But when you think about, as an actor, when you think about the idea that you have this instrument, which is your body, it basically consists of three things: your voice, your mind, and your body. And that's what you act with those three things. So it's really a third of the equation. And, that goes for just living life as well. Your voice is how you express yourself. It's how you communicate with people, or part of how you communicate with people. So what I'm doing is helping people to get more connected to their voices on a variety of levels. I'm helping them get rid of a lot of bad habits that can cause vocal damage or block their voices. I'm helping them develop their voices and make them stronger and more vibrant and more interesting, helping them get rid of a lot of tensions that tend to get in the way of their emotional life so that they can feel and speak at the same time. Because a lot of the time when people start to get more emotional, whether it's on the positive spectrum of emotions or the negative spectrum of emotions, they'll tend to get really choked up. You'll see people whenever if you watch award ceremonies or that kind of thing, and you see people start to get emotional, you'll notice that they get sort of strained or choked up in their voices. And so I'm there to help facilitate opening all of that up so that people can really express themselves and their thoughts and their feelings, the gamut of feelings, through their voices, so they can be powerful communicators and really communicate with all of themselves and have that be expressed vocally.
So
that's a very general overall perspective of what I do.
You do see a crossover, though, with singers. You've worked with people that are vocalists as well.
Oh yeah, the work that I teach is it's based on a book called Freeing the Natural Voice by this woman, Linklater, a brilliant teacher who's actually still teaching to this day. She's in her 70s now, but she's still busy teaching around the world. And she created this body of work really to apply to anybody. I mean, she was an actress and came from an acting background, but really it can translate to anybody. And like I said, I've worked with non-actors, during the years I've taught, and it can be just as effective. In fact, that's, part of one of my goals is to bring this work to more of the general public outside of the performing arts. But to get to your question, yes, it does. It basically, if you are a singer or you like to sing or you want to sing, what I teach will basically help your singing voice, even though the purpose of it isn't to be a singer. It's not about singing, but if you learn the work I teach, it'll improve your singing. It just sort of has a parallel because you're working on your voice. It ultimately helps you as a singer as well.
So if someone is vocalizing, let's say, in a rock and roll style, if you're a female vocalist and you're singing rock and roll, or you're a more of a poetic kind of lyrical, rap-oriented person, does the voice get strained in the same way, or the same? Is the voice like a singular muscle? Like a lot of people say, if they're doing curls with their arms, they're like, I'm working my bicep. Does the voice work that same way, or do people with different lyrical styles have to look out for different things?
Well, singing and speaking kind of travel down the same road for a while, and then they do veer off from each other, though, in certain ways. Because when I'm teaching people how to speak, how to use their voices just as speakers, as actors, or as performers, a lot of what I'm trying to teach them is that their body actually knows how to breathe. That when we're babies, when we're born, we breathe perfectly. There's nothing getting in the way. It's all of the conditioning that kind of messes us up as we grow up. But that we actually, if we're really relaxed and we're connected to our breath, when I have a thought, my body will take in just as much breath as I need to say whatever I have to say. So, I mean, that's how it is when you speak. So ideally, your body just responds to your thought, and it takes in whatever amount of breath you need. If you've got to scream across a football field, your body's going to take in a huge amount of breath. If you are having a conversation with a person who's a foot away from you, your body's not going to take in as much breath. So that's how it goes for speaking. But when it comes to singing, where it starts to kind of veer off a little bit is that in order to sing, you do sometimes need to use some muscular control, because you're holding notes. It's more measured. It's a little bit more mathematical. You have a phrase. You're going to be holding this note for a certain amount of time, and you actually need to measure out your breath. So it's a little bit more precise, and you do actually need to use a little bit more muscular control in the act of singing. So they are a little bit different. So the skill of singing does require you to learn some specific skills that do involve, using your breath in a different way. But the principle still remains that your breath supports your sound. So if you're like a rock musician and you're like out there, just screaming it out, and you don't have the breath underneath your voice, you'll blow your voice out. You do have to support what you're doing, or you're going to lose it. Or you'll end up really damaging your vocal cords.
This is definitely some interesting stuff. We're going to come back. We're going to come back with actually a part 2 next week. Heidi, before we leave part 1 here, though, what's one thing people could do right off the bat to just help their voice in general?
A really, really simple thing is humming. I know it sounds really, kind of a little bit silly, but just humming is like a little massage for your vocal cords. So when you just put your lips together and you hum, whether you're humming to a tune or you're just literally, making a hum, you're just literally feeling the vibration on your lips, that's really a good exercise for your voice, really easy one, and it kind of keeps your voice in shape. It's really kind of one you can do while you're sitting in the car or, hanging out. So it's an easy one to just kind of take care of it.
Definitely pretty awesome insight here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. We are going to definitely take it to part 2 next week.
Excellent.
Chorus and Verse, chorusanverse.com. I'm King Famous. You can catch me kingfamous.com.